I'm Jeff Fischel with the ACC Digital Network, brought to you by Ruby Tuesday, and joining me now via Skype, Gene Williams from warchant.com. All right, Gene, I want to start with a supposition, so go with me for a second. Let's suppose the Florida State players are completely dismissing Duke and overlooking Saturday's game. I'm not saying they are, but in that scenario, can Duke beat an unmotivated FSU team?
I don't know if I'm going on a limb here, but I have to say no. I think they could make it competitive, make it interesting, but at the end of the day, the athletes are just so much better, I think, at every position. I'm not taking anything away from what Coach Cutcliffe has done in Duke. They've had a tremendous season. I think everybody's very proud of what they've been able to do, but I think this is just a mismatch of athlete for athlete on both sides of the field.
Yeah, I tend to agree. That's the what if. Let's get to the real world. Now that the Seminole coaches are really digging in, watching Duke film closely, what impresses them most about the Blue Devils?
Well, I think obviously on offense, I mean, you look at that, they've got one of the best receivers in the league. They've found out ways to win games. I mean, that's the thing. If you go into a fourth quarter, look at how many games they struggle, and they've always found ways to win. You know, Florida State hasn't been in that position all season. They've never had to battle back in the fourth quarter. So I think Duke would give anything to be in that position right now. And I think Florida State wants to make sure they're not in that position. I don't think they will be, but that's something to be concerned about.
I talked a little bit about if this team's not entirely focused. Let's hit on the Jameis Winston legal situation. Is that impacting this team at all?
Not if you look at what's going on the field, and not if you listen to Jameis Winston, any of his interviews. He's that happy-go-lucky guy we've known from his recruiting days to the beginning of the season. You go out on the field, you look what he did against the University of Florida last weekend, the week before, with all the stuff over his head. You wouldn't know anything is going on if you follow what he does on the field and the way he carries himself. So, in my opinion, it hasn't had one bit of influence on him whatsoever.
Can you imagine why 9 people wouldn't have voted for him for Rookie of the Year in the ACC?
I have no idea. It's one of the best rookies I've ever seen in the league, that's for sure.
Well, at least he did win Rookie of the Year. Assuming the Noles win against Duke on Saturday, they're headed to Pasadena. A lot of debate about the BCS. Who do you think should be number 2, and who's the best matchup for the Noles?
Boy, that is a tough question. You know, there's part of me, the SEC has won it 7 straight years, so I think a lot of Florida State fans were a little disappointed when Alabama lost. They'd love to be able to play an SEC team and knock them off their perch, but at the same time, you can't deny the history with Florida State and Urban Meyer, and they're the only major undefeated team out there to have those teams go head-to-head. I think that would fire up a lot of people, too. I kind of would personally like to see Urban Meyer and Florida State battle just because they had so many battles when he was down in Gainesville. I think that'd be a very interesting national mashup.
Sure. All right, now break down Saturday for me. Give me your prediction. How is it going to go Saturday night?
You know, I'd like to give Duke a chance, and I wouldn't be surprised if they made it competitive a little bit early, but I just think at the end of the day, there's way too many athletes for Florida State. I don't know if Duke's going to be able to stop Jameis Winston and company. They've been so good all season. I know the spread is somewhere around 29, 30 points. I think that's about right. I think Florida State wins going away. I'm going to say 45-14, something like that.
Gene Williams, 45-14, that's his prediction. Great work as always, Gene, covering the Seminoles for warchant.com. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.